Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jen Pyroth, and I'm the parent of 4 children in 3 different Hamilton County schools. I'm here today joined by and representing parents, faith leaders, and medical professionals in our community and our state. We are here to deliver another message to Hamilton County School Board members and also Mayor Coppinger. And our message is this: every child, regardless of where they come from, what they look like, or the politics of their parents, deserves to be safe in school with no exceptions. That means fully adopting the temporary mask requirements with no exceptions called for by our country's leading health professionals to keep all children safe in schools and families at work instead of in preventable quarantines. Right now, our hospitals are reaching capacity with children getting sicker from a preventable virus with proven mitigation strategies. Hamilton County School Board members, schools were not open for even 2 days before hundreds ended up exposed to COVID, sending children home from school and parents home from work. In a community crisis, we are meant to each sacrifice a little to care for the greater and common good. COVID has shown us the health of one child depends on the actions of another. And in this community, we shouldn't let anyone opt out of their responsibility to do their part to protect all our neighbors and all of our children in school. This is not a debate where there are 2 equal sides. There's a side for keeping children safe in school and families at work instead of in preventable quarantines. And then there is another side that is putting all of our children in harm's way over ridiculous political hyperbole. We're supposed to get through tough times together, but instead, state politicians have dumped the burden on local teachers, parents, business owners, and local communities to fight COVID all on our own, while at the same time suppressing life-saving public health guidance, undermining health professionals, and pitting us one against each other to distract from their own failures to deliver for us all. The consequence of COVID is worse, endangering our children, returning to school, families trying to work, and everyone's access to healthcare as our hospitals run out of room. The temporary mask requirements called for by our country's leading health professionals are how we all go in for all of us, no matter our color, our politics, or place in Tennessee, to keep all children safe in schools and families at work instead of in preventable quarantines. It's my pleasure now to introduce our first speaker, Ben Connor.
Hello all, I am Ben Connor, Hamilton County dad and the father of 4 daughters, all under 10 and therefore unable to yet be vaccinated for COVID-19. I volunteer my time as a member of the Normal Park Spark Board, as well as the president of the board of directors at Northside Learning Center, a preschool located next door to the lower campus school of Normal Park. My tenure as board president could not have come at a more challenging time, taking office a few months before the pandemic took hold of our schools and our lives. In my role as board president, I drafted and presented protocols and procedures that kept our school open and operating even more days than the phenomenal record of Hamilton County schools posted last year, in contrast to the rest of our state. Do you know how both of us achieved this Herculean effort? Following the advice and knowledge of medical professionals and the tested science. In short, masking and social distancing. Children under 12 are perhaps the most vulnerable population right now, as they are the only demographic that cannot receive the vaccine. It is our duty as board members, parents, and simply decent members of society and of a compassionate human society to do this one basic effort for our children. Sadly, and all too often, this message of compassion falls on deaf ears, and we as the leaders of our society must act and must take action to intercede for the good of the many, for the good of our children. I call on the superintendent of schools, Dr. Townsend, Dr. Johnson, members of the school board, our county commissioners, and the Hamilton County Mayor Coppinger to stand in unison for what is right to stand and say, we will not be bullied into compromising the safety of our children's lives. We must have a mask mandate without an opt-out allowance to save the lives of children in our community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Ben. Next, I'd like to introduce Reverend Laura Becker.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you all for being here this morning. My name is Reverend Laura Becker. I am the pastor of Northminster Presbyterian Church here in town, and my children have been in Hamilton County Public Schools since we moved here in 2008. My oldest daughter is about to head to college, where thankfully responsible administrators are requiring masks indoors in that community in addition to vaccinations. But my youngest is in middle school, where due to age of some of the students and misinformation, people there will be unvaccinated and unmasked. I want her not only to stay safe, but to stay in school. I'm already dreading the rolling announcements of exposures and required quarantine, as some of our schools and families have already experienced by the second day of classes. And I want other students to be protected. If our leaders want to keep schools open for in-person classes, we have to follow the advice of medical experts and scientists and ensure that everyone is masked. We have amazing teachers in our county who were put in an impossible situation last year by becoming remote and then later hybrid instructors. And now with this opt-out loophole for the mask mandate that the county has issued, teachers are again put in the position of using their precious time to keep up with who is and who is not supposed to be wearing a mask each day, instead of teaching our children as they were trained and hired to do. In the congregation that I serve, we have required masks for in-person worship because we know that not everyone in our community can be vaccinated. We understand that we have a responsibility to care for one another, and that we are called to make personal sacrifices in order to keep others safe. In my tradition, we do not get to opt out of loving our neighbors. Getting the vaccine if you can, wearing a mask, are how we can love our neighbors and care for each other right now. So as both a mother and a pastor, I am calling on our county officials to lead with courage and to demonstrate care for our children. Set aside partisan political interests and lead our community as you were elected and called to do. Stop playing politics with people's lives. Listen to health experts. Remove the burden that you have put on teachers and parents and communities to fight this pandemic all on our own. So to Hamilton County School Board members and to Mayor Coppinger, I urge you to do your part to ensure that all children have the same protection in our school, and that there be no exceptions for how we do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Becker. Our next speaker is Brandon Gilvin. My pleasure to introduce him.
Thank you. My name is Brandon Gilvin, and I serve as Senior Minister of First Christian Church here in Chattanooga. I was considering some of the scriptures at the root of our faith tradition, and as I was thinking about this meeting this morning, and I came upon the story of Cain and Abel, which is one of the early stories that are shared by the Jewish Christian faith. And there's this shocking incident of murder, but even more shocking at the end of this story when God confronts Cain about where his brother is. Cain responds with, "Am I my brother's keeper?" And that's the whole point of this story, is that we are called to be the keeper of our siblings. And you see in the Christian tradition, in the earliest scriptures, the letters that are attributed to Paul and others, the same sort of emphasis that the community is called to care for the most vulnerable. And so it's important that we remember that all of our students, our teachers, are our neighbors, and they are our siblings as well. And we are called to be their keepers, particularly those who do not have access to vaccination or are particularly vulnerable. This is a public health issue, but this is also a moral issue. And we have, as these other folks on this call have mentioned, we have the mitigation strategies vaccination and universal masking, particularly in an uptick that we're seeing with this Delta variant. One of the things that has concerned me, as I've heard a lot of the rhetoric in response to masking as a mitigation strategy, is many folks saying that they are choosing faith over fear. But the problem with that is they are forgetting, just as we learn from these letters in the early Christian tradition, just that as we learn from these stories like that story of Cain and Abel, is that at the core of our faith is a call to care for one another, a call to care for the vulnerable. So I want to ask, and quite frankly, confront and demand Hamilton County school board members and Mayor Coppinger. Can you do your part to ensure that all children, all of our vulnerable populations, all of our educators have the same protection in school, no exceptions? Thank you.
Thank you so much for those powerful words. Our next speaker is Justin Wilkins.
Hi, my name is Justin. I'm the father of 3 children in Hamilton County schools, 8th grade, 5th grade, and 2nd grade. And after last year, my 7-year-old daughter in the 2nd grade was very excited to get back to school. She told us last Thursday morning she even brushed her teeth twice without being asked, got dressed before everyone else, and beat her brothers to the car. She came home after the first 2 days very excited about being back with her classmates and teachers, looking forward to playing with her friends this last weekend. And then Friday night, we got an email saying there were 2 confirmed cases of COVID at her school. There was no notification that it involved anyone close to her at the time, so we all went to bed, cuddling on the couch watching a family movie. Then Saturday morning, we woke up to an email telling us that our 7-year-old had been exposed to a close contact of COVID, and that she had to now quarantine until August 24th. So now, while everyone waits and hopes that she'll be okay, she's back out of school, separated from her friends again, quarantined from her younger brother who doesn't have the option of being vaccinated yet, while my wife and I rejuggle our work to watch after her over the next 10 days. My question for Hamilton County Schools is, were you ensuring my child's safety and the safety of other children during those first couple of days in this close contact by following the standard of care that you set last year, required masking in the schools, as called for by the Centers for Disease Control, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the health department, and local physicians? And secondly, does the fact that we've not even gone 2 days and there are already multiple schools with exposure, children missing school, parents missing work, change the minds of our school board members or Mayor Coppinger into fully adopting the public health guidance with no exceptions in order to keep all our children safe in school? Lastly, I'd like to know from each school board member whether they believe all children in our Hamilton County schools, regardless of where they come from, the color of their skin, or the politics of their parents, deserves to have the same protection from COVID as the next child. If that is true, then they need to stop politicizing children's health and fully adopt the public health guidance without exception.
Thank you, Justin. And in closing, I just wanted to tell my story. I purposefully did not write anything down because I wanted it to feel like we were talking to each other. Sometimes in these situations that get highly politicized, we can get into a frame of mind of thinking of us and them, but I am a concerned parent. I have, like I said, 3 children in 4 different schools. This morning, my oldest, who is a junior at Hickson High School, woke up feeling really terrible. She was dizzy, she was nauseous, and we were terrified, frankly. My fiance had to take off work so that he could bring her to an urgent care center. They had to sit in the car for 2 hours waiting for a test. And during that time, we all held our breath. My 2 youngest daughters are too young to be vaccinated. One is 11 and the other is 9. And so in the meantime, in those 2 hours of them sitting in the car, we were frantically trying to figure out how we would keep our children separate from each other, the mental health toll that this would take on siblings being separated from each other, the constant fear that we feel now in our own home, worried that despite all of the many efforts that we made over the past 18 months, somehow COVID had made it into our 4 walls. I am so relieved to tell you all that she did test negative. We are so grateful for that. And she could have tested positive. And that fear is so real for me, because when I send my children to school, I do not have any faith that they are being kept safe, especially with this opt-out option. I'm all for liberty, of course. You know, I'm all for parents deciding what's best for their children. And this isn't, you know, letting their kid cut their hair or something. This is a global pandemic. This is a crisis that affects all human beings that have a body. And so all human beings. And in that case, and in that sense, we are called to love our neighbors, and we are called to care for each other. And just as Americans, we need to band together to make sure that this does not continue to be such a horrible experience for so many people. And so I personally call upon the school board, upon the mayor, upon Governor Bill Lee, everyone who has power in this, to please help us. We are scrambling. We are terrified. I ask you to please lead as you have been called to lead, and to require masks for every single human being that is in school every day with no exceptions. Please protect the children that we have entrusted to you. Thank you so much. And just to close, I just want to say the following. Hamilton County School Board members, every child, regardless of where they come from, what they look like, or the politics of their parents, deserves to be safe in school with no exceptions. Our country's leading doctors have called on you to issue mask requirements to keep our children safe in school. Temporarily, nobody wants to wear a mask, but we all want to do it temporarily so that we can be safe and keep the people around us safe. Dozens of other school districts have already shown you that they are willing to reject threats from radical politicians in the state who want to punish school systems for protecting children. The standard of care that you set last year proved effective at keeping children safer in school and parents at work. And now that things are worse and our children's hospitals are reaching capacity and hundreds are already missing school because of exposure in the first 2 days of school, the question to each of you is this: will you put the safety of all children first? We've seen over the last year just how much the health of one child depends on the actions of another. No one has the right to endanger other people's children by opting out of their responsibility to do their part to protect all of our kids in school. This is not a debate with 2 equal sides. There is the side for keeping children safe in school and families at work instead of preventable quarantines. And there is the side of putting all of our children in harm's way over ridiculous political hyperbole. Mayor Coppinger, school board members, which side are you on? Thank you.
Now we'd like to open it up for a couple Q&A with members of the press. You can raise your hand or enter it into the Q&A box. If you have a question, just go ahead and raise your hand or put it in Q&A, and we will call on anybody that has questions. Brianna, you should be unmuted. Oh, wait, try now. Let's see. Hang on one
about
second,
now?
Brianna. You're not. Perfect. We have you now.
Great, thank you so much. My question is for the parent who said that your daughter is home quarantined. What is the option right now for learning for those children who are quarantined? Because I know before you could, Zoom into class, but how is that working now this year?
Well, I believe that one's for me. It's we have instructions that we are absorbing right now on what we are supposed to be doing. So we are trying to wrap our head around what we're supposed to do to keep up with classes over the next 10 days. And I think between the experience of the teacher and the experience of my daughter and the family, it's a great example on why we ought to be preventing as many of these quarantines as possible. And if temporarily wearing masks avoid preventable quarantines, it seems like that's something we ought to be doing.
I can speak to that. My son is on quarantine because he was exposed after being in school for 10 hours. And we were told there's really nothing. It's treated like a flu absence. They use the exact words, like imagine your child had a flu, that's what this is. So if you think about that and the impact on education of my child being continually quarantined throughout the year, and I understand teachers are in a difficult position, but there is no instructional footprint for the kids this year. We were told, see if he can figure out the stuff on Canva without instruction and just treat it like he has the flu. And he's been in school for 8 days. So not 8 days, sorry, like 8 or 10 hours he was in school. He was quarantined on Friday afternoon, morning. So I don't think they have a really good infrastructure in place to accommodate the amount of quarantines that have happened so quick into the school year.
Well, and Governor Lee and the state legislature made it pretty clear that they were going to prevent local communities from offering remote learning options for folks, and which makes the fact that the goal of some of these politicians who screamed all last year about the importance of having children in the classroom has zero credibility when they refuse to follow the public health guidance that instructs all of them on how to keep kids safe in the classroom, which is with these temporary mask requirements. And so bottom line is if we want kids in schools and parents at work, we need to be following the health guidance that, keep kids in school and parents at work, which is temporary mask requirements. Any other questions? Go ahead and feel free to put it in the Q&A or raise your hand. All right, not seeing others. So we'll go ahead and close it out. We'll send around a video of the recording to everybody in the next 15 minutes. Thanks, everybody.